So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
It's easy feeling so long to gain. Baby, get by a minute into force. Oh, I didn't notice it's all getting forward. But only when caffeine back, yes, riding caffeine. I didn't think it'd ever come to a stop.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Cannabis and Coffee with me, Tamarijuana. This morning, I'd like to welcome my guest, who is a longtime activist, has fought for our rights through a court ruling, with a Mernagh ruling, which I was a witness in, actually, with, that was a few years back, 2006, I think it was, when we first got going with that. Matt has been very diligently working to fight the laws within the court systems, as well as on the streets with the hash mob and all kinds of things. He's had his own show. And I'd like to welcome Matt this morning. Good morning, Matt.
No, good morning, Tamara. Thanks for having me on your webcast.
Oh, I'm glad to have you. It's always good to see your face, and not everybody can see your face, but I can.
Yeah, well, you know.
So how are things? Are you all still ready for 420 tomorrow?
420 is interesting for me because I retired last year from the stage at Yonge and Dundas Square. I felt personally that I had taken it as far as I could go, if that makes sense. And the lovely Mike Rita is going to be responsible now. I'm excited to see what he has in store. I'm looking forward to his show. So that's kind of it for me. On the other side of things, I will be at Green Market at 4 o'clock. And I will be talking and doing something there. But it's a lot different 420 than it's been in the past for me.
Absolutely. I seen Mike Rita in Vancouver at the Mum Cup. He's fabulous. Funny guy. And we had a really good time with him too. Yeah, 420 for me this year is going to be pretty quiet too. I'm not anywhere that we're able to have a 420, but you know, across the country, of course, we've got, 420 at Sunset Beach, and Toronto's having the same huge one at Yonge and Dundas. And I imagine there's one in Calgary and Edmonton and all other smaller communities around. We will have a small gathering here tomorrow, but it's not going to be anything like I'd like to have it. It's pretty conservative here, too.
Well, it's fascinating. Like, Toronto's the big one, obviously, that people think about. But I like to say, I think Niagara Falls has a rally, St. Catharines has a rally, Hamilton has a rally, Kitchener has a rally, Kingston has a rally. So Ontario is, I think there's like 30 plus something rallies in Ontario that people have an opportunity to go to. So I'm pretty proud of that fact. That when Ontario, when we started, nobody was doing cannabis smokeout rallies. So to see that progression, to see that generation of people just kind of pick up and go from there is pretty cool.
It is. I know that, 420 in Lethbridge, when we did one way back, and now I hear they're doing another one this year. They're actually having one in the park at Galt Gardens with more of a festival setting, which is historic for Lethbridge, quite frankly. And I know they do one, I'm not sure what they're doing in Calgary. I know 420 in Edmonton, they're having, Terps Compassion Club is having kind of like a cup. And of course, Nova Scotia, and all through, Manitoba, I know Stephen Stairs is, throwing one in Winnipeg as well. So across the country, they really have kind of stepped out, and Bob Erb, was funding them years, I'm not sure I think he still is actually helping some people across the country. Kim McNeary is up in Yellowknife, and she'll be doing one up there too. So ultimately, all the way through the country, we'll have 420 celebrations going on all over the place.
I think it's really awesome that Kim does 420 in Yellowknife. I really, I want to go to that. Like, there's a lot I'd like to see. I'd like to see other cities 420s. I won't get to do that this year, but like Yellowknife 420, there's something about that one that just strikes me as you can't get any higher in Canada. you know,
Exactly. And she's out there.
geographically located.
Yeah, and she's out there by herself. I don't know which I think she gets a little bit of a turnout, but that woman, I have to commend her. She has stood strong for years, and never mind being busted and having a family to raise too. So here's kudos to Kim McNeary up in Yellowknife.
Yeah, it's so. I think like the Canadian people. I mean, I think the Canadian people, the marijuana advocates in this country, have worked to get this legislation going. To be truthful, I mean. It wasn't one group of people. It wasn't one person. It's not one person still. I think the 420 represents that. I think you see organizers across this great country stepping up and have created resistance pockets all along the way. So it's not like some Toronto MPs getting pressure. It's now the Winnipeg MP. It's now, the Lethbridge MP. It's when it gets to that point, that's when we see traction, and it's not one person.
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's pockets of us everywhere. I mean, like I said, Tabor, Alberta too. Like there's people out there that are still fighting. Like I said, Alberta's been, the vast land, but then we have to look at Saskatchewan too. Saskatchewan really doesn't have a lot going on. There is a Saskatchewan Cannabis Club out there, but you don't hear a lot from them. I know Debbie Palm's out there. I know she's trying real hard to try and get things going, but like I said, she, it's hard to get going. Like even here, like my MP, who is an NDP MP, he's pretty okay with, with the cannabis. We have a provincial election going on right now, so trying to strike forward with any one of them trying to kind of, get a cannabis policy for the provinces. Because as we know, with the new legislation, distribution is now going to come back to the provinces and how it's regulated.
That's been handed, I mean, we expected that. That was the divisions of federal and provincial power. Right. So we were anticipating that. My fear in the BC provincial election and the Ontario election, too, that it will come up just before marijuana is legal. We'll hit the campaign trail as the legalization should be coming into effect according to the timeline, right? My fear is someone like Christy Clark being the premier out there, promising storefront dispensaries as a last-ditch effort to save their political career. And the same out here in Ontario, where we have Premier Kathleen Wynne doing potentially the same thing. She went very firm, hey, this is going to be in the LCBO, to suddenly now saying, well, I'm open to ideas.
Well, I think the feds also said they didn't want to put LCB, they didn't want to put cannabis and alcohol together. Wasn't that in the legislation there too? So I think that kind of nipped the whole LCBO in the butt, that they aren't going to be able to go that route. And why she's going to be open to ideas, because she's not going to have that option.
Well, it's not, it's a suggested. It's only a suggestion. They can't actually force the province not to have it in the same place. It's a suggestion.
Yeah, well, it's all a suggestion right now. Like, legislation's all just a suggestion.
The legislation's been read. It has 2 more readings to go.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
They can't tell the provinces not to put it in their liquor places because they can't control distribution. But they can suggest via the legislation that gets passed that it's not sold together. But they can only suggest that. What we're seeing in Ontario, Tamara, and it's funny, when we heard that she was in favor of the LCBO, we did a bit of digging, and we discovered the people behind pushing it to be in the LCBO was the union.
Ah, yes.
So when we had just learned that, some things got put into play a little behind the scenes, where this union is not associated in the U.S. with the cannabis unions. So there's 2 big unions in this country technically may have an interest in the cannabis stake, especially in Ontario, UFCW being one of them. And the UFCW has licensing the manufacturers of licensed producers. So they definitely have an interest in businesses not being in the LCBO because those workers aren't unionized by that.
Right. Right, and that's something that that we're going to have to look at, because licensed production sites, are the unions wanting to come into them? Is that what you're saying then?
We've seen, I think it was Marican, or it could be Med Relief. One of them had a union drive, and shenanigans were afoot after the union drive on behalf of the LP. and the union is a bit hung up over the next process because there's no cannabis union yet, but it's UFCW. I imagine they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, I'm not a big union fan on any level. I think that, if your employers treat you well, there shouldn't have to be a union. And I think that with the cannabis community, like like I said, I've never been into a licensed production site, so I'm not sure like what the environment or the morale is like in those places. So, and I've worked in a big factory before, and I know that it was a non-union factory, and the morale in that place was great, but they treated us really well. So I've never worked for a union. I'm not a big union fan, but it's going to be what it's going to be when it comes down to labor laws and everything else when it comes to be legalized. Well, it already is. Like for the licensed production, they are under labor standards, are they not?
Oh yeah, let me tell you, there's a lot of labor laws involved in growing medical cannabis. There's all the Ontario labor laws that come into play. And as your company grows, like our company's on the process of growing, not just cannabis, but employees. So every so often we get into another regulatory bracket, I guess, per se. We're now in a bracket where we have to have 2 first aid stations that have cots. Where in the past, for me, with my seizure disorder, it was like, I got a nice couch. Couch doesn't cut it anymore because of our size of our company. So certain things, like obviously labor standards come into play. But my question and fear is that we're going to allow agriculture labor standards to come into play. And agriculture labor standards and light industrial and industrial labor standards are dramatically different.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. So, well, because for example, Alberta just barely got some labor standards for that. Farm workers actually have WCB now. And the
right.
Farmers in Alberta were just tripping their balls about that because it's going to cost them money. And I understand that. But if you've got employees, more than 6 or you've got 10 employees working on a farm, somebody chops off their arm and you've got no liability or accountability for it, that guy's left hanging, right? So I understand some of the regulatory systems that they've got for agriculture, but, you're right. They're totally different when it comes to light industrial.
Right. So, and that's where people begin to say, oh, it should be as cheap as, my tomatoes. Well, I've gone into debates with people when I've said, those hothouse tomatoes you're getting in Mexico, in Florida, they're like some of the worst labor standards in the country, or North America.
Yeah.
And we can't allow that. People should be paid a good wage to grow cannabis.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's a standard, even like with the minimum wage across the country being low and different from province to province. Again, with the regulatory system that they're going to throw back for cannabis is going to be regulatory by the province, which will mean labor standards. It'll mean WCB. It'll mean minimum wages. It'll mean everything different province to province. Never mind what they're going to do as far as allowing dispensaries. I don't know how many licensed production sites there are in British Columbia now. I think there's 7 out here. 7 or 8, I think.
7 or I'd have to look it up, but it's fascinating to me. You bring those notes up of how it's different minimum wage, it's different hydro costs. There's a lot we see based on province by province costs. Ontario being one of the costliest provinces probably to grow cannabis in.
Right.
Also just happens to have the most licensed producers. I think you may see a province like New Brunswick, which is really keen on cannabis, do quite a bit to attract that sector in terms of keeping costs down, such as hydro would be a big one.
Right. Well, and the difference in wages too. Like, I'm not sure, I feel that somebody that's working in a licensed production site, trimming or anything, should be making minimum $25 an hour. That's my thoughts on that. I know that, as an employer, that possibilities that they're not going to be able to pay those kind of wages. But even a bud tender, putting themselves at risk in the front lines in a dispensary, should be making more than minimum wage. That's my thoughts on it. Of course, and you have to, understand that there's the overhead of rent and bills and with these employees are also paying unemployment and CPP and stuff as well, which the government, gladly takes, but won't, regulate their job, which is, another thing that like I said, with this legislation, like leaving all these people that are already working the front lines in these stores, like basically hanging too with no standard. So this is going to be an interesting year to see how they're going to bang this out.
Well, I think the interesting thing of the legislation is it's not worker friendly. Like, let's go to that point.
It's not friendly at all, really.
Well,
like it's not really. I mean, let's face it. Okay, baby steps. Yes, we've gotten there. Yes, they've tabled the legislation. But when you look at the fact of the criminal records that are going to be attached to it, this is not cannabis friendly or cannabis consumer friendly at all. In hindsight.
Well, that's what they always promised on the campaign trail, and they did promise to restrict access, and they did promise to do these things. This is exactly what the Liberal government promised on the campaign trail. It's unfortunate that they haven't kept the same type of promises to the Indigenous people and providing them with clean water. It's unfortunate that they haven't done the same thing to women politicians. It's still going to take 100 years to get parity in the House of Commons. It's unfortunate they haven't tackled it the same way they tackled the voting issue. It's odd that the Liberals they did promise to restrict access to cannabis. And that's really what they've done.
Yeah, and that's true. They did. They said that it was going to be regulated and restricted. And that's, definitely what they're planning on doing. And I can't say like I said, I've read through the 143 pages myself now, and I just kind of keep looking back at that. Selling a joint to somebody who's 17 years old could put somebody in jail for 14 years. And that just to me just seems like
they're doing to help those people in Taber, Alberta.
Yeah, for 4 grams. Don't get caught with 4 grams in Taber, Alberta.
Right. But the Liberal Party needs that support of conservative Canada by saying, well, we're going to lock up those people that sell to minors. Not recognizing that the 18-year-old that brings weed to a party that has 16-year-olds there could be in a lot more trouble than he anticipated or she anticipated.
Well, it's almost a contradiction because they said that anybody under the age of 18 caught with a small amount of cannabis would not get a criminal record. Yet in the hindsight, then turn it around and say, okay, but caught passing that or trafficking that, and we're going to really fuck your life up. So it's almost a contradiction, hypocrisy when they're saying in one breath, okay, well, we're not going to give these young people criminal records because we don't want to ruin their lives. But be one of those kids that are going to be out there, selling it, and we're going to fuck with you big time. And that's, the hypocrisy of that contradiction.
I agree. Okay. I mean, it's as I say, they're trying to maintain a middle road Canada. They've made a decision that they don't really need the marijuana advocacy group. Their support on this bill is not needed. They need middle ground support. And that's things such as, harsh penalties. Conservatives come out and make complaints about things. They can say we got harsh penalties. I think the real issue with the bill is that it's not, to me, worker friendly. And I'm going to continue to go back to that and say this is a Bay Street bill. This was written for the boys on Bay Street, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it really has left a lot of people that have made money in cannabis, whether they're the small mom and pop dealer, the mom and pop grower, the worker, hanging. Yeah. So that's my issue with, I guess, the legislation. I have other issues with it. Most of it does with branding.
Yeah, well, the branding too, the non-advertising and the labeling, and it's all just like I said, it's so complicated that it's not and they've made something that could be so easy more complicated than it has to be. And I don't understand the concepts of and Bill Blair with his comments about potheads and the driving issues. And I mean, I think that, Mad Canada's gotten exactly what they wanted. They wanted to wrap up harsher on the alcohol driving laws. And now they've gotten the marijuana crapped in there so they can really harsh down on, the zero tolerance for drinking, which I'm not opposed to. I'm not one that, says, hey, jump in your car after having a couple drinks, you're going to be okay. I'm absolutely not there. I don't drink and drive myself. One glass of wine, I'm grounded. I do not drink and drive. But when it comes to cannabis, I'm also a medical user as well. But I can say that I don't want to admit this out fully, but I mean, I've smoked a couple JBs and jumped in my car and not felt any different than I would have if not. Or actually probably a little calmer behind the wheel. You know what I mean? My anxiety, I don't like driving. And so, you know what I mean? So there's that concept too with the medical patients that use daily, where they're going to be able to drive, where that's going to leave people even being able to hold a driver's license. So that's another thing that is kind of worrisome for people that hold medical licensing. For recreational use, I guess, some people can't handle their cannabis. You know, like I've said many times, people have different tolerance levels, and there are people out there that smoke one joint are a complete wreck, right? And where
Or a
us,
vapor
we, you know,
bag.
or a vapor bag, or you know, there's other ones of us that can smoke like, you know, a couple joints and be quite functionable. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
actually need those couple joints to be functioning. So you know what I mean? Like there has to be some sort of line discrepancy there when it comes to driving.
Well, I think the problem I think people in marijuana I think are missing is that this is liberal. This is how liberals write law. Having experienced it in Ontario under McGuinty and Wynne, this is how they do things. This is exactly when I did the marijuana zone and we said, watch this liberal government. And I used terms like Prohibition 2.0, he will arrest more people. You would think if you look at those webcasts that they're today, or that maybe I was getting so stoned I was visualizing the future. But this is what liberals do. They use this weird velvet backhand punch to the face. You know, like,
Yeah.
what else can I say?
Well, it's a passive aggressive move on all levels, right? We're going to hand you something and then yank it out from underneath you with this and this and this, right? And I think that's exactly, you're right. Like, I mean, I hate, and I'm, you know, the one that went out and went to the Liberal convention and campaigned for the Liberals. And I'm, you know, like I've said, I'm chewing my tongue off. Because, you know, in hindsight, I went in there with faith and hope that we were going to actually get what we were trying to tell them. And they were going to get what we were trying to tell them. And in reality, they didn't get anything. And that's, I think, the most disheartening thing for me and for many of us that were out there trying to lobby and trying to get them to, you know, see the different sides of medicinal, recreational, what the solutions and resolutions could possibly be. And they just took it and ran a totally different direction with it. So that's my thoughts and my feelings. I mean, I'm happy to a point that at least they tabled the legislation that's farther than we've ever gotten in Canada ever, but it's still not the right legislation.
Right. So I understand. I mean, your feelings of being disheartened. You worked very hard on the campaigns. You are one of many people who are Liberal supporters, joined the Liberals, and were out there. I think, too, people hijacked the Liberal campaign for their own ends in the cannabis community and didn't allow people or have people really question the words restrict access. I think during the election, I know for a fact that people focused on two words, legalize marijuana, and there was a few of us that said, well, what about these words that said restrict access? And nobody wanted to hear that from people like myself during the campaign. They were just so happy to hear the words legalize marijuana and not really recognizing my second point was that Justin Trudeau's a dirty fighter. I wouldn't fight him. I'll gladly fight Stephen Harper. I'll gladly fight the next conservative leader any day of the week. But Justin Trudeau's the type of fighter that when you're in the corner with him and you go to lock up to get a break and separate the two fighters, he's the type of guy who's doing the little rabbit punches to your kidneys while you're trying to lock him up. He's in there doing, oh, let me, I'm a dirty fighter. You know, and if the ref's not looking, maybe you get the knee in the groin in the corner. Like, he is not a clean player any step of the way. He's always been a dirty fighter, right down to using the family name to get elected. I mean, the man's a drama teacher, for God's sakes. You know, like, our prime minister's main experience is he taught drama to high school kids.
Well, you know, in hindsight, I guess they hired the best actor they could for Canadian politics, right? You know, when you look at it,
the Liberals did. 100% the Liberals did. That's what this. 100%. Look, people promised me when I was on the campaign trail, telling people and warning them about the Liberals, get involved like yourself in these campaigns, and keep an eye on them, build your network, and keep an eye on them throughout the whole thing. People were like, "Oh, this is the new Liberal Party, Liberals 2.0, and McClellan's not going to be around." What the fuck? Yeah. And McClellan was the chair of the task force, and I had people be like, "She's not going to be there. Don't you worry." Things like Bill Blair.
Yeah, that was
every marijuana advocate in the fucking country knew that Bill Blair was fucking going to be the leader of this point person on this task force, and you all ignored it. every single fucking person in the cannabis community should shake their head in shame, especially the princess is like, oh, it's gonna be okay. And now saying 420 is like G20. Bitch, you fucking knew he was running in Scarborough Rouge River. They knew, and you allowed it to happen. The marijuana people allowed it to happen. And they posted this legislation because they looked the other way on the warts and the dirty fighting that the Liberals always engage in, run on a progressive campaign, and then immediately they're elected, they'll see fucking 51 gets passed.
Yeah. 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 And they haven't repealed that either.
Repealed it, they passed it, Tamara.
Yeah.
They made a few tinkering changes.
Yeah.
I mean, to be truthful, Tamara, this whole idea that, oh, it's legal the day they got elected is kind of silly. It's kind of like the Indigenous person living with dirty water saying, well, I voted Justin Trudeau, he's the prime minister now, I don't have to boil my water.
Yeah, exactly. You're right.
Maybe
and
next election, he didn't do anything and we can all mark a couple X's on the ballot.
Yeah, and you're right. You're totally right about that, because there are people out there that even now, like, now the legislation's been tabled, they're like, oh, I can plant my 4 plants now. Oh, where am I going to get seeds? And it's like, you cannot plant anything. There is nothing changed. We are still under the same laws we were under yesterday and the day before and last year and the year before. Nothing has changed yet. And I think that, people really need to sit back and realize that nothing may change ever. Like, you know what I mean? It's been tabled. It can go through. It can be bounced back and forth between Senate and the House. I don't know how many times. It's going on to, you said, the second reading now. How long is this going to take? And are we going to be happy with it in the end? Probably not.
No, cannabis people, this isn't designed for cannabis. It's actually designed to stop cannabis people. If you look at it, you're allowed 4 plants and you're allowed to possess. If R.V. Mernagh went through, well, you could have grown as many plants as you wanted. You could have possessed up to 3 kilos.
Right. And in hindsight,
I look at this legislation, I'm like, who are you trying to fuck here, boys? Like, the guy who had a few plants in his home had less than, like, if you look at the charge in R.V. Mernagh, wasn't even charged with marijuana on me. I was only charged for growing pot for myself. Yeah. And they're trying to prevent that with court cases by saying, so if we get 4 plants out of this whole thing, at least it's a start.
Yeah, if that's what you want to call it. Like I said, I'm trying to still be optimistic. I'm trying not to poo-poo everything. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to stay like, okay, 4 plants. Okay, 30 grams is, an ounce, a little over, not much, but, most people don't run around. Well, depending, I guess people do run around with ounces of pot on them all the time, but in hindsight, if you're, a recreational casual user that only smokes an eighth a month, if you're lucky, this legislation is for you.
Right.
And if you're anybody else.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So we're going to go to
anybody else. I think what the other thing is if 15 years ago, 20 years ago, in 1968, if you said you're going to get to grow 4 plants in 2018 and have an ounce, those hippies would have loved it.
Yeah, they would have. But in hindsight, now that we're where we are now, none of us are liking this. Like I said, there are people out there that are thinking this is great. It's going to take the stigma and stuff away and everything else. But in hindsight, it's really. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll rip it down a little farther as to what it really will do for the cannabis community and what it won't do. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to listen to Mike Love, the Humble, and I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, Remo's Nutrients, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, Haley Rose Foundation, and the Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana. We'll be right back.
Is a public service announcement from the Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society. The Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society is a non-profit organization dedicated to ensuring improved access to therapeutic cannabis and cannabis byproducts in Canada. With a federal government that has committed to legalizing cannabis, we feel it is our duty to ensure that the medicinal use of cannabis doesn't get lost in the process and that there are clear distinctions made between the medicinal and recreational use of cannabis. It is our mission to ensure that government regulation doesn't get in the way of a sick, disabled, or terminally ill person's right to use or produce this amazing natural health product. If you would like to get involved, You can contact us on the internet www.canadiantherapeuticCannabisPartners.com, on Facebook, CTCP Society, or search Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The word of the Almighty Jah, you're never gonna break the spirit of Rasta. Hey, cause the man never know, never know this fiance, and never never reach. But the chosen never choose one, now I use the man to teach. Oh, it could be you, it could be me, it could be anyone at all. But you better be ready to answer when Jah Jah calls. Alarm, and don't take it personal. If your brother man judges you, cause only you man Jah know the reasons why you do what you do. Yeah. He is probably acting up some insecurity. So just give him all your love and reflections of purity and surety and humble, humble, humble. But check your ego, man, before you stumble. There is no need to grumble, no. But check his guiding your way. Let your light shine through you. Be an example in everything you do, and goodness will follow you, yeah. Well, all the rest of your days go by and you're still living in fear. The hours turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years. How much longer will it be before the truth is crystal clear? How many more oceans will we fill with tears? We are children born out of an infinite trinity, with Mother Earth and Daddy, Son and Child humanity. So how can we go on living so disrespectfully? We gotta protect our precious family. Oh Lord, and please be careful what you choose. You've got everything to lose. Before you judge, but in somebody else's shoes, you just might change your views. Cause only through poverty can you know true well, and only through the eyes of others can you see your true self, yeah. So if ever you are afraid to face the day, oh, this life is such a blessing, push your hand and be happy, and humble, humble, humble. Go check your ego, man, before you stumble. There is no need to grumble, no. But Jah is guiding your way. Let your light shine through you. Be an example in everything you do, and goodness
to Matt Mernagh. We've been having quite the conversation over the break. And we'll get back to ripping down this legislation and where we were kind of at that point, where, how hard, some people went out and worked for this legislation, and how it didn't really turn out to be the best expectation that some of us wanted or were expecting. But, like Matt says, we're dealing with a Liberal government here, and this is kind of how they roll. So going back to that, we were talking about branding and how that affects what you're doing with Peace Naturals, Matt. So why don't you kind of explain, because like I said to you, I don't really understand the whole branding aspect of the legislation. So why don't you explain that to people, because I don't get it.
Okay, so the bill has a couple big chunks to it. So first, I work for the Peace Naturals Project as their marketing, communications, and product specialist. So I focus on the product side of marketing and working with mostly educating clientele and patients. I should also mention that I have a non-disclosure agreement, so there's very little I can talk about in terms of, like, you can see how it plays out, but I can't talk about the political angles or whatever. So we're gonna, and work has me here as just being Matt marijuana advocate. We'll try and bring in the guy I work with, Eric, who I trained on the CMPR. Had to teach him that. But the bill and what we're dealing with, I mean, like, Health Canada really prohibits the marketing of prescription narcotic drugs. And that's what marijuana is. At least in the eyes of Health Canada. It's not in my eyes. It's not in anybody who's listening to the show eyes. But to Health Canada, your medical cannabis from a licensed producer is a narcotic, same as any other narcotic produced in this country. Which makes the marketing and branding of your product very difficult. In fact, I can cite violations quite easily. Tweeds, Snoop Dogg would be pretty big violation of that act, because you can't have a celebrity do something like wear a shirt. Even today, you'll see, like, I'm wearing a baseball cap and a Yoda hoodie. But if I were to appear on your webcast, Tamara, and I had a Peace Naturals hat up and it said Peace Naturals and had our logo, Health Canada would say, Matt Mernagh, the celebrity, the best-selling author, appeared on your webcast and promoted Peace Naturals. Right?
Right. And that's a thing, like, even stating that you're, maybe even saying the word Peace Naturals would be, an advertisement. Like, if we were say, like, as I used to say, they could be a sponsor. I can't have them as a sponsor on my show because I can't promote that licensed production site. So that's kind of an understanding I've got with that portion of it. So that means that in the future, it'd be great.
And let me be truthful. It'd be kind of neat to be able to tell people, like, hey, let's put, some money on this webcast and this webcast and this webcast and spend some money that way and do these things. You simply can't. Health Canada prohibits it. Health Canada prohibits the marketing of your message to simply saying the variety, indica, sativa hybrid, the percentage of CBD and the percentage of THC in said product, the name, and your company. It's very plain packaging. And we heard coming into this, I mean, I've been dealing with the restrictions since January with Health Canada. I've been working with Health Canada in a way. By working with, I mean they tell me, and then I go out and make the corrections that I violated the ACMPR, just so people know, on numerous occasions. Beat me by accident. And that's the very first thing we come back and we're like, whoa, we just didn't think talking about yoga to people was we thought we could do that.
Right.
For instance.
Right. And I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, they're pretty restrictive, even, like I said, for licensed production sites. Like, you have to have, like, the diligence. Like, I mean, I couldn't even imagine what, a day-to-day kind of whatever is on this. You know what I mean?
I can talk to you about that, but I'll focus on the marketing. We'll bring it back around to the bill. So when we heard this from Tweed and Tilray, they went to Parliament and they actually said, hey, some of these places, Tweed, Tilray, a few others, and I encourage your listeners to look it up. It was not our company. We did not sign this form. Went to Parliament and said, if you don't let us brand, we cannot compete against the illegal marketplace. And our company said, we can't sign that. That's not how we roll. Because they recognize branding is very important. I love the fact that the cannabis community has done tremendous work in branding, and it's something that I've had a background in my life. I have an education. I'm glad to have helped inspire it and worked with people to help inspire it. It's great to be able to have a job in it, even if I'm completely like not just handcuffed, but put in a straight jacket and a little coffin and like it's grand. But you can see when this bill was released, Tamara, and you look at the stock market, the price of cannabis stocks has dropped, especially.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you want to know why? The branding. The branding aspects of this bill take up, other than the DUI part, and like the growing is like a sentence or two.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing on branding is huge. It goes on and on. I mean, I can cite numerous places in the new legislation where Snoop Dogg or any celebrity is completely not allowed. You're not allowed to brand based on a culture. So you can't be like, yeah, cannabis, weed, 420, fuck yeah. That can't be promoted as a lifestyle. You can't promote cannabis as a lifestyle. You can't have a celebrity promote cannabis. You like, basically your cannabis is going to come in a brown paper bag.
Yeah, because it can't have names, anything on it, like absolutely nothing. And that's the thing.
It'll have essentially what the ACMPR has, which is the company name, the variety name, whether it's indica sativa hybrid, whether it's THC, what percentage, and what percentage is CBD.
Okay, here's a question for you. Okay, so here's a question I've been asked. So how are they going to regulate it? Say this all goes through. We got 4 plants, and they say they have to find your seeds from from a licensed producer. How are they going to regulate where everybody's going to get their seeds, and how do they plan on regulating where they're going to, you know what I mean? Like which brown paper bag came from where?
We can go back. I'll just finish on the branding front. One of my ideas was to like sponsor the Jays at some point. I wanted so badly to have, the Peace Naturals 7th inning stretch or something. The legislation specifically says I cannot do that.
Yeah.
You can't sponsor cultural events. You can't sponsor arenas. I mean, they have gone out of their way.
But Rexall can.
Marijuana people think that they got fucked by this piece of legislation. I think there's a couple of licensed producers that spent a lot of money and time branding medical marijuana as for their recreational business, woke up and were like, what did our boy Justin Trudeau do? Half this bill is against us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, true. That's totally true. But like I said, Rexall can. Like, I mean, they, Pfizer can. I mean, they can, sponsor arenas and stuff. So eventually, do you think they would, maybe change that? Because let's face it, like they do.
No, they do. I mean, look at Budweiser. Budweiser sponsors stuff. And I think we'll wrap it on that, is that marijuana people don't have anything to worry about. And there's punishments for this. The punishment for violating the act in terms of branding carries some very stiff penalties. Matt Mernagh, the guy who works and does a tweet that's like, hey, that tweet's not, that you violated the act, whatever. So some guy on the low end of the corporate totem pole violates the act. That guy doesn't get hung out to dry in this legislation. The people that get hung out to dry are the directors of the corporation.
Oh, geez.
Right?
You have to be really careful. Yeah.
Wait a second here. It's been written in a way in which the employer, like the director, can't come to the marketing department and be like, yo, take out Facebook ads. And then you take out your Facebook ads, and then the director gets the call from Health Canada and be like, you can't take out Facebook ads. It's against the act. Oh, one of my employees must have done that. I'll go fire them. Right? No. The person that gets in trouble is the director.
Oh, geez. So that means that everybody's got to be on board and know exactly that you can't be doing that.
Right. And so they really focused on the branding side. In terms of, I guess, the next side, 4 plants, really? I mean, I know police can count. Well, who's going to be trained to use the yardstick?
Yeah, well, that's, I think that's where I think a lot of even municipalities are wondering, how the hell do you plan on regulating this? This just sounds so ridiculous. Like, what does that mean? More money for police force? And like I said, and
No,
that's not where we're going with that, right?
I think what it means is you have a domestic in Toronto, grows on a personal size don't usually get pinched unless, there's a domestic or a call to the house, like a fire or whatever, right?
Right.
And I think that's what they're looking at. In Toronto, I know people like using what's called 311, which is the city services to complain about like your neighbor doing illegal construction work. And it's huge in this city. It's the 311 bylaw complaints are bigger than snitching to Crime Stoppers, right?
But I mean,
and so one day you'll be looking over you'll just look over your fence or whatever. You'll be like, yo, my neighbor's got 5 plants. And then like your neighbor pisses you off because he's not going to give you some of that weed. And then the next thing you know, you're on the phone to 311 and you're like, yeah, my neighbor's place stinks like weed. He's got 5 plants. I can see them. And then the next thing you know, bylaw shows up. And bylaw doesn't need a warrant. The dispensary saw that. Shows up and be like, doo-doo-doo, coming in, right, walks right into your backyard. Be like, yo, you got 5 plants here? Here's your ticket.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Well, I mean,
it might not even be police.
Well, that's the thing. Like out here, we have one bylaw officer that takes care of like everything. So, what I mean?
You're lucky.
And like I said, and it's the same with the dog bylaw. Like, you're only allowed to have so many dogs, but it's a don't know, don't want to know kind of policy. If I don't get a complaint, we don't know about it. We don't want to hear about it. You know what I mean?
No,
so,
you kidding me? The dog guy hangs out in front of our house trying to catch one of our neighbors. That's how many bylaw. Toronto's got bylaw officers, let me tell you.
Oh, and way too much time on their hands.
Down to municipal. I see it. The city of Toronto has the City of Toronto Act, which allows them special taxing power. I see them like, oh, wait a second here. I see
rubbing their hands together. Yeah, rubbing their hands together, like, oh, well, we can do this and not in this. And I mean, in hindsight, I guess I'm not opposed to having to pay to have a storefront. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be opposed to having to pay, like, not an exuberant business licensing, but I wouldn't be opposed to having to pay an extra tax if that meant that access for everybody would be, easier, right? If that was the case. But I don't want to see exuberant taxes. Like, I think it's $5,000 for a business license in Nelson right now to have a dispensary, right? And Nelson's a small town. And I think in Kimberley, I think she was only charged $100. So you see the difference in even, like I said, in the interior of British Columbia, and like here, they laugh you out of the office. You're coming in here for a business license for what? No. You know what I mean? Like, they're not even entertaining the thought yet. So, and that's like I said, so when it comes down to when this legislation rolls out and how they plan on, you're going to have, like in Denver, they have counties that opted out on marijuana legalization. You're going to have towns that put bylaws in that aren't going to allow people to even grow 4 plants. Yeah.
But the nice thing about a town, it's a lot easier to get elected to town city council than to the big house in Ottawa.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And that might be, somewhere that some of us may be looking at sitting in the next, near future, because of the fact that not just for, cannabis reasons, but, other reasons. I mean, smaller communities need to be enlightened on a lot of different levels on a lot of different things. And I think I see going forward, that's going to be a main concern for a lot of municipalities. Like I said, even in this provincial election, I've spoken to all 3 of the incumbents that are running out here. And I'd say that, on behalf of all of them, they're, all pretty okay with the cannabis. One's not so okay. The other 2, I would say, are very cannabis friendly. And like I said, I'm trying to stay anti-partisan because of my position with the Ministry of Transport right now. But it's difficult for me to not say, which one I'd like to see and, more, but I have my personal pick, but, in hindsight, right now people just have to go and vote. And I think that's the biggest message I can get out to anybody, again, is that you have to vote, period. Like there's, 55% of the province voted in the last election, which is not too bad considering, where it's been down as low as 31%, but voting is very important. I don't think people quite understand that you got to register and you got to get out there.
Right. And that's, to me, one step of the faith. I mean, people like yourself and myself, getting involved in the campaigns is important. I know the NDP have a leadership race underway, and I'm going to be slowly watching the leaderships, see what's going on that front. And
watching that too, actually. I've been watching the NDP and the Conservative leaderships, and in hindsight, I've been watching the NDP a little closer because I kind of like Peter Julian and I kind of like Charlie Angus. So you know what I mean. I've been kind of watching those two go forward.
Go ahead.
Those two are the only two that I would kind of see coming out, in any aspect for the NDP in my preference, right? And then in the Conservative, well, I don't have one. I guess I just don't have one. I just hope to God Kelly Leach doesn't get in. I guess is
I thought she was from Alberta.
No.
Hold on, I'm not. I thought she was from Alberta, and I was like, I could justify her position being from Alberta. And let me tell you, it wasn't until I was up in Stayner where Peace Naturals that I was like, oh wait, what? She's from here? Oh my God. It was a bad experience. I think she was from Ontario. Be in a potentially community I want to move to. That's the MP.
Oh, well, speaking of Tweed, I just got a note here saying, it says licensed producers and pre-licensed applicants interested in craft programs are encouraged to contact so-and-so at canopygrowth.com or Owen Smith, and it's Tweed Canadian Cannabis. Interesting. I'll have to check into that a little more. But yeah, so maybe the craft, maybe the licensed producers know a little bit more about this craft licensing than we do.
Well, I think people don't. I mean, it's not craft licensing. They're going to allow whatever passes through, right? If you want to have, I mean, we have a facility with like 15, 20 lights, maybe. And there's nothing wrong with that. If Canopy wanted to funnel some money of their money and be like, we're going to set up a small line, a craft line, to where the grows are 15 to 20 lights big, and it's not going to be mass produced. It's going to be more fine tuned, hands-on. They have the people there already. Medcan Access guys, they work for them. Adam Greenblatt, he worked for Tweed. So there are guys that, definitely Tweed wants to build a 10, 15 light grow. They have the skill sets of people. They're like, we're going to build, this size grow. It's going to be a tinier grow.
Well, I mean, maybe they're looking at quality rather than quantity too, right? Because the smaller growers sometimes have better quality because they take a little more time. I don't know. I'm a craft grower myself. Like, I'm medicinal, but I mean, I love my plants like, my house plants or like my family. So I take really good care of them, and
It is a lot different as a personal grower of 20 years. It's different from to an extent. I mean, you're pulling 1,000 clones in a day, or the size and stuff. We've actually, at Peace, just to allow a little bit, is that we've broken our rooms up a bit and recognized like the big, open, lots of lights just isn't the way we want to do things. But if you watch and you look at the videos on how cannabis is grown in a licensed producer, it requires almost a textbook. There's a lot of differences. The standard operating procedures, such as I say, putting on, rubber gloves, special footwear, polyvinyl suit, hairnet, the polyvinyl suit that goes over and you tighten it around your neck. Those are things that in a medical grow, that's what these growers are doing, that the craft grower is not doing. So that's one thing. Sanitation, and following it every time. And every single time, you have to go through steps A through Z every time. Boom, boom, boom. We as personal growers, today maybe I don't feel like wearing my hairnet.
Yeah, and I mean, but the thing of it is, if these smaller growers have to follow those regulations, then of course everybody would have to wear their hairnet, right? So, and I don't think those standards are bad. Like, I mean, like I stated, you should keep your garden cleaner than you keep your kitchen. Like, what I mean? Like, you should be able to eat off the floor in there. And that's, because of the fact that you have to ingest that into your body. It's no different than eating something. And especially if people eat cannabis too on top of it, you don't want to have hair and anything mixed in with that cannabis that you're then going to, extract down. Like, it's just, that's just kind of like common sense, I guess.
But I think people in the cannabis community are leaving themselves up for failure and not accepting that they can do this. I think a lot of them can't say that they can't do this. And my position is you're going to have to partner up with someone who knows how to make the money, someone who knows how to get the facility, someone who knows how to fill out all the paperwork. Like, you just can't be like, yo, it's me and my fucking plants. No. It's not going to be that way.
No.
Hate to break it to you. It's just not, standard operating procedures are a good thing. Good manufacturing practices are a good thing. And I think people, to go on that point, how Canada does it outside of you can only use 14 products to spray on your plants, like Organigram, Metrum. They have a list. And that's about it. They don't tell us, you guys got to keep your plants in veg for 10 weeks. They don't tell us that. They don't even know how to grow wheat. They let that up to us, but they come in and check things like, hey, the camera above this plant's not working. What's going on with that? You guys got to fix that. Oh, your security gate doesn't seem to be working as good as it should. You guys got to fix that. Yeah. Right? And that's what I think they do. I've never once been there for an inspection, but they're terrible. They're like, yo, the video camera, we want to watch a video from 3 months ago. Can you go get it?
Wow. And
so people need to get their head more around not the facility per se, but around the idea of prison-like security. If you have prison-like security around your facility, and here's an example. To get into the office, I go through the gate, which has my security fob and my passcode. Get through the gate. That just gets me into my office area. To go over to manufacturing, I have to go through a second gate. That's just the fob. A third area where the team meets, I have to fob, enter my passcode. So that's 3 times I haven't even seen plants yet. I then have to fob to get to put on my sperm suit, the polyvinyl, all that stuff. And that brings me into a dummy room. So that's 4 fobs. I fob again. That's 5. I then can get into the holding area where 1 more fob and a passcode. And as long as someone's with me, because I'm not security cleared, as long as a security cleared person's with me, we can go see some plants.
Oh. We're going to take another quick break, and we're going to come back to that, because I didn't know that, you had to have somebody with you. But that'll get back in, I guess, to the security clearance and the whole criminal record aspect of, what you have to do to be able to do this. So we'll take a quick break. I'd like to thank my sponsors, who are Remos Nutrients, 12 High Chicks Magazine, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, Haley Rose Foundation, and MUM, Maritime Merchant for Medical Marijuana. We'll be back with Back to the Roots by Paul Isaac, Foot Tube Love, and Kevin Holder.
Tune into the Pace Radio Show and catch Kim Cooper, Debbie Stoll-Skiffen, or Allison Murden, along with myself, Al Grant, as we talk to Canadian and international cannabis advocates who are working hard to help patients and to end cannabis prohibition. Catch us live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here at lifestyleradio.ca.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Hi, it's Deb from BMA Hydroponics. Whatever you are growing, from vegetables to medicinal cannabis, we have everything you need to succeed. From seed to harvest to processing and extracting, we carry all the brand name products that will help you produce, process, and consume high-quality medicine. Our knowledgeable staff of qualified growers have decades of experience with home production, and all possess either MMAR injunction status or an ACMPR registration certificate. We offer the largest variety of products available anywhere, and if you don't see what you're looking for, just let us know and we'll find it for you. Visit our store at 404 Maitland Drive in Belleville, Ontario, or visit our website at bmahydroponics.com. We can be reached at 613-967-9888 Monday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/BMA Hydro and drop us a line at BMA. Our motto is your success is our success.
This is Bubbles from the trailer park, and they're playing some fucking excellent music on lifestyleradio.ca. I hope I didn't sound too nervous there.
Please hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
One, two, three, four.
Would you be an understanding of where we've been and where we're going? Yeah, from the roots we will set our foundation, land of which we stand upon. Cause everyone has the right to be free. Yes, everyone has the right to live peacefully. Everyone has the right to be free. And everyone has the right to live peacefully. So come and stand for what you believe in. You come and stand for what you believe in. You come and stand for what you believe in. Set your foundation. 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 Wait. You're from the roots on up. Yes, yeah. You're from the roots on up. Well, you're from the roots on up. Take it on, yeah. You're from the roots on up. No matter color or your religion. No matter color or your religion. No matter color or your religion. 'Cause it's a new beginning. Yes, it is. It's a new beginning. Yes, it's a new beginning. Yeah, it's a new beginning. So start it now. Sunrise, yes. I believe in sunset, yeah. I believe in sunrise. I believe in sunset, yeah. I believe in never forgetting in where we have come from. I know we must stand strong. A new day is dawning. New cries are calling. New day is dawning, yeah. And these new cries are calling. Set your foundation. 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 Yes. You're from the roots on up. You're from the roots on up. Well, yes, I'm from the roots on up. You're from the roots on up. Take me back and take me back to the roots so we can grow again. Back to the roots so we can look within. Back to the roots so we can all begin to understand once again. Yes, understand once again. Back to the roots so we can look within. Back to the roots so we can grow again. Back to the roots so we can all begin to understand once again. Yes, understand once again. Cause I know all of us have been told certain things, yes. All of which it has a price and it will bring you faith. Or destruction may bring you faith. Or destruction. So take that weight off your shoulder. 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 And take me back to the roots so we can grow again. Back to the roots so we can look within. Back to the roots so we can all begin to understand once again. Yes, understand once again. Back to the roots, oh take me back, yes. Back to the roots, take me home again, yeah. Back to the roots, come and take it home. Back to the roots. Woo, taking it back.
Roots. Roots.
back with Matt Mernagh. We've been talking a lot about licensed production and what he does with his job and social media and how they have to track back even a complaint on Facebook. So if somebody out there has complained about their medicine from Peace Naturals, the Health Canada actually makes them track that complaint back. So that's pretty interesting to see that Health Canada's, taking, I guess, those steps to make sure that the licensed producers are actually taking care of the patient.
Yeah, I mean, like, we have quality assurance, and I think people need to recognize, like, it's when you do with us, like, we work very hard with our patients to make sure they're satisfied. Like, I'm a patient at the end of the day. Like, I get all my meds from Peace. So I give them I give them feedback all the time on manufacturing. That's part of my job. But we value feedback from our patients and hearing what they have to say. And it's, like, Health Canada just wants to know, like, well, what are you guys doing if someone says your product doesn't work or they have some other complaints? Because I think they're getting this. A lot of people try an LP for 3 months and then they jump to another LP, and I'm trying to retain it so people can be at the same LP for a long time. But Health Canada tracks everything. That's the other security and an assistant to track everything.
And security.
And I mean, like,
and you were telling me,
leaf
like, security.
on the floor, that leaf has to be tracked.
And security for you even. Like, you have to go through, like you said, 5, just to even get through, to even see the plants. And you have to have somebody with you because you don't pass security clearance. So what does their security clearance mean that would make it so that you could go through without having to have somebody with you?
So here's one thing a lot of people like, oh, I have a criminal record from cannabis. And we recognize that as cannabis people, a lot of us have criminal records, especially some of our best growers will have a criminal record. Peace Naturals will simply overlook that and be like, we'll just partner you with a responsible person in charge, an RPIC, because you're not going to get it. I myself might qualify. There's a lot more than just the criminal record. You got to let the RCMP know where you've lived for the last 10 years. You have to let them know who your employers were for the last 10 years. The security background check is intense. Like, I have the form, I've been contemplating filling it in because, like, I've lived pretty much in the same place for the last 10 years. I have a criminal record, but I just grab a friend from work that's responsible. And then I don't have to be responsible. There's times when I'm like, why do I want to be a responsible person? Then someone who's not yeah, because the thing is, there's a lot of people at work that don't have it. So then you're looking to partner up with someone.
Well, and that's the thing, too. They put you in the spot.
You'd be like, yo, you got your art break? And they'll be like, yeah. Hey, can you walk me around this room? I just want to see a few things. Like, okay. That's your take a look. Yeah, it looks pretty good there. Let's go take a look at this one. Like, we do a whole walkthrough. It could take an hour. Like, to walk through the building could take an hour by the time I punch my code into everything. Like, so I think cannabis people need to be aware that we can be included. The bar is not as high as we think it is in our heads. But we also need to recognize that we're going to have to work with people. And that window is slowly going to come to a change. I mean, under legalization, right now, companies should be looking to hire out of the cannabis community. And I see that at the clinics. I see that when I go to a clinic now, like the doctor signing clinics, I'm like, didn't you work at one of the dispensaries I just walked in? They're like, oh, yeah, I worked at this dispensary. And almost all the frontline staff used to be bud tenders because they know cannabis. They know patients. So it only makes sense, right? But this window, I mean, like us, people we know, getting real, legit legal jobs. And that's where I'm at. I mean, a lot of people talk about the legislation, which I'm keeping an eye on. I want 4 plants because that's what they said. Like, I'm not even going to push it. I'm going to let branding being taken care of by the bigger LPs. I'm focusing on 4 plants. And I'm also focusing on making sure our people have jobs. A lot of our people, I look at this is a fight between jobs. And there are certain people and at the high end that are advocates that own businesses. And they have, at the end of the day, their own interests to take care of. And I think we as people and patients and workers, we need to start being heard because the jobs really aren't aren't being delivered, nor we were never promised. We were promised legal marijuana, but we were never promised jobs. Never promised jobs out of it.
No, and that's, I think, where, a lot of the people that are already business owners are kind of, holding their breath, because if they say no dispensaries, and the only way that they're going to be able to distribute is through LCBs and Shoppers Drug Marts and stuff, that's going to leave these businesses out. Like, no matter how you slice it, like, there's not going to be any room for them. And I mean, that's, going to be left to the provinces again as well. And I think in BC, I'm hoping that we're going to be okay, that, the dispensaries and the people that are already in that industry are going to be able to, move forward. But then again, in Alberta, it's going to be different. Saskatchewan, how is that going to be for export, import between provinces? Are you going to be able to export, import between provinces? There's like a lot of questions that go along with all of this.
Well, I think, again, the worker on that end of the dispensary, I hope that they have an opportunity to manage their career. And I kind of look at dispensaries, they were only a temporary stopgap until the government got a system in which Canadians had good access. They were never supposed to be like, this is my business. I mean, if you're growing, you're a grower. You grow wheat. That's what you would have done regardless.
Yeah.
And you would have sold it, and then it would have had a dealer. It was never designed like, oh, well, you, the retail guy, are being hurt, so I have to defend you, the retailer. I'll defend you, the grower. I'll defend you, the worker. I'll defend you, the patient. But if you want to be a businessman, the government's got a system in place. I think there's some highly intelligent people in the cannabis community that have great connections that could, no offense, I think so highly, Tamara, of Mark Amory, that in my opinion, Mark could raise 5 to 10 mil to start up a licensed production company, legitimately.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure that it could.
And instead, the libertarian side, the no rules guy, didn't want to jump through the hoops. And yet Mark's a smart guy. Dana Larson's another guy I think so highly of. It astounds me to think that Dana Larson couldn't jump through the hoops with financial backing from some company, like whether it's a mutual fund company or, that's what's going on here. And I think people are missing some of the points, is that there's some highly intelligent people in cannabis that should be partnering with money or other expertise. There's a company that specializes in helping you get your whole business established. There's no reason cannabis people should be, not included. I think they're trying not to include themselves in some ways. And I'd like to see the worker, the patient, and whatnot covered. But in terms of retailing, it's very hard for me to be like, yeah, I'm going to fight for your retail rights so you can sell me cannabis.
Yeah,
right?
I guess if you look at it that way, as far as a retailer, because it's retail business. Bottom line, you have to have product like any other store out there, right? So I know I just like to see that, like I said, with the access point, because I mean, if the dispensaries are there, then people have better access, I guess, is my why I'm defending the dispensary model of it, because the fact that so many people want to use that model. That's something that
I'm not opposed to storefronts. Like, that's the thing. And the company I work for is not opposed to storefronts too. I've been on stage with Phil Lucas and the organization we're in, the CMCC. We're not opposed to storefronts, but we want them regulated and let communities use retail acts and bylaws and whatnot to regulate where they are, just like a bar, whatever. Like, I'm not opposed to storefronts in any way. Where I kind of was like, I guess where I'm ending with, the reason one of the things I sort of got moved away from doing some of the advocacy I do is that it's benefiting a few retailers. It's not, I don't see it benefiting the whole cannabis community. I see it benefiting a few. And I guess I got disappointed. So I support storefront businesses. And here's the thing, and Chuck Rafisi, he's a smart dude. I've met him, I've met Mark. I think they're both equally the same intelligent business people. are we opposed if Chuck Rafisi opens up a national chain of cannabis storefronts? Oh, that one's no good. Well, he's just doing what Mark did.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
Just
I think it's that's a cannabis community thing. Well, I think we feel that we forefronted this industry, we should be the ones first out of the gate. And that's not the case. It's not the case, nor was it ever going to be the case.
Well, I think people. Well, it was never going to be the case. I mean, especially if you vote for the Liberals. They're not the party of the people.
Just gonna keep jabbing that in there.
They are not the party of the people. The party of the people is the Democrats, right? And the party of the worker, and the party of that. And I think people are like, I don't know. I mean, I think here's the last thing is that I think people ask for the wrong thing. I've always, legal marijuana was an easy term. I've always promoted the LCBO model, not the retail outlet, by the way, Premier Win. But I think marijuana people ask for the wrong thing in the end. And I'll throw this out. You got 10 minutes in your show because I'm still formulating in my head what's going on. One, corporatization of cannabis, and whether you're Peace Naturals, you're the Tweet, whatever, the corporatization of cannabis is gentrifying or stealing the cannabis culture because that's what Whitey does. That's number one.
Yeah.
Marijuana, I hate to break it to you, Tamara. When we started, marijuana was like punk rock. It was like 30 bars, 10 guys, woo! Yeah. Marijuana now is like, oh, fuck. We're going to go see Nickelback tonight with 50,000 other doofuses with their cell phone in the air instead of a lighter. That's what marijuana is now.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. So I'm working on these side of philosophies. But I guess in the end, recognizing that one, corporatization means that Whitey's going to rip off the cannabis culture because that's what we do. I'm white male, by the way, and that's what we do. Ripping off my own culture, I guess. It's weird. I'm ripping off my own work.
Yeah.
But it's also this idea that maybe we should have just asked for drug war peace. That maybe there's so many interests in the world, whether they're the retail dispensary owner that's advocating for his or her business, whether it's the licensed producer advocating for his or her own interests. When we see marijuana now, I look at it, I see very factions. I see lots of factions, just like you would see in a civil war. You have little different pockets all, either fighting each other or fighting the man.
Yeah.
And I think what happened is that the government did create what they thought people wanted, which was legal marijuana. But I guess I've had over a year now to think about it, and I work for a company called Peace Naturals, and I'm trying to be more peaceful in life, and people recognize what I've done. I mean, it's hard work. I mean, I think people don't recognize, like, man, we held the streets of Toronto for 3 hours one year, and the rain, and it was, no advocates in this city can have a hard time to accomplish that. So to be able to stare down 52 and Bill Blair for all these years, like I stared Bill Blair down for 10 years. Come get me, motherfucker. And now people are opposed to him because he's, an MP. But I think what I'm getting to is that I myself am trying to find peace. And I think we need a peace treaty of some sort. There needs to be people like, oh, well, it didn't cover, the fact I have a criminal record. And I'm like, man, I agree.
Yeah.
It didn't cover, there's punishment if I give a joint to an 18-year-old gives it to a 17-year-old. Well, a peace treaty would cover something like that. Well, if they're both in high school and one's 18 and one's 17, we're not going to prosecute something that. But if it's a 35-year-old man giving an 17-year-old kid a joint, well, I think we got some issues there.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've never wanted to see 12-year-olds or 14-year-olds walking down the street puffing a joint. That was never our intent either. There are kids out there that do, need it for medicinal use. And I'd rather see, a 14-year-old with attention deficit be able to, eat a cookie than have to take Ritalin. That's, something, but that's also the medicinal side of things. And with this new legislation, they didn't touch a lot on medicinal All he said pretty much was it was going to be relooked at in 5 years, which is what the ACMPR said right from the get-go. So, that kind of left, I guess, patients kind of wondering where that leaves them in this whole regime of new legalization.
Well,
some of them are laughing, thinking, "Oh, I can have 4 more plants," and I'm like, "Yeah, I guess you can." Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like being optimistic about the whole thing. But like I said, when it comes down to the ACMPR, it didn't touch a lot on that.
Well, it didn't touch on it. It was never intended. I mean, it's a recreational bill. It's designed to help recreational smokers that smoke less than an ounce get access to cannabis. That's
right.
what this bill
Right.
is.
So patients out there
It's
don't
not
have to be
teaching the
worried.
drug war. And I think you touched on, hey, what's going to happen in 5 years? I think we need to start making sure that, hey, if you're in the ACMPR and you're a grower or you're a patient and a licensed producer, you better keep agitating now, because there's issues coming up, and the issues are going to all come around affordability. You and I know it's expensive. I don't even want to give you the price tag of the cannabis that I received from Peace Naturals and declared on my taxes. Yeah. £1/4 a month.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And if you grow your own, you can't really, declare that on your taxes. So,
right.
And same with the insurance part of it. Like if you're, growing your own, how does the insurance company cover your meds for you? So there's so many different things.
Yeah, it's different. But the insurance part, and why I'm getting patients to agitate now, because if there's no ACMPR, there's no insurance. And now Loblaws and Shoppers, they just came out with a little stipend of $1,500, which is, it's a start. That stipend's not going to cover your recreational marijuana.
No. And I mean, like I said, recreational users, like I said, when people are saying, 30 grams, but most, like I said, on hindsight, a lot of recreational users don't use daily cannabis. There are people out there that only go out and buy, a gram or 2 a month, and that don't have, that 30 grams to them is like, woohoo, that'll last me a month and a half. You know what I mean? If I could carry that much. Where there's, people that need that per day as a prescription. So like I said, the new legislation is strictly for the legal restricted market. And the ACMPR will then be looked at again. And so that kind of leaves the patients kind of alone for now. But like I said, we really need to keep watching that. Because 5 years comes along and scoop what's going to happen. So that's something that everybody has to kind of keep an eye on for sure.
Right. And when I talk about it now, I mean, they're making plans now. They make 5-year plans. I mean, they see where the program's going to be in 5 years, not in year number 4, going to be year number 5. It's government. It takes them a while to figure anything out.
Absolutely. And that's how, why we always kind of say 5-year increments, because we know it takes that long.
But I think, you have 10,000 people a month joining the ACMPR. I mean, we're opposed. I mean, the ACMPR has its flaws. The personal grow, Neil Allard and all the people that got that's a huge step. I think it works now, in my opinion. You have 10,000 Canadians every month joining. You have national access clinics. Not everybody's getting access. I realize that, and we still have quite a ways to go. But yeah,
there's still not doctors out there signing, and without a fee, right? And I think that's the biggest catalyst right now, is you still have that damn fee with some of these doctors. I mean, some of us are lucky enough to have our doctors on board, and most patients, and I know in this area it's just not happening. Doctors.
Well, it's a little different than 2008, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It's a night and day difference.
Yeah, totally, totally.
And we have to accept that. And we're like, oh, it's still I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, I mean, it's a lot better. I hate to break it.
It is, totally. Like I say, like I kind of pointed out, 5 years ago, we didn't have this. 5 years ago, we didn't have any legislation tabled. We were still dealing with Stephen Harper. The Conservatives rolled out the MMPR. Our grows were taken away from us. We were back in court. And now 5 years later, we've won the ruling for Allard. Patients can grow again. The legislation, whether we like it or not, has been tabled by the Liberals. We're 10 steps farther ahead than we were. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's not all, roses and peaches like we wanted, but hey, we're at least 5 steps ahead of, or 10 steps, I think, ahead of where we were. And there's lots of people across this country that have worked really hard to get, this legislation pushed forward, whether we, like I said, whether it's what we wanted, whether we like it, but there are so many people that, in pockets all over this country that have worked really hard to get this forward, whether it be somebody that, lobbied against for it, or for it, because if you're lobbying hard against it, it means that it was still being talked about. And I think that's the biggest conversation that we've had in the last 5 years is cannabis across this country. Everybody's been talking about marijuana. And I think that's something when I started in 2007 really wasn't happening. Like it was murmurings and little bits here and there. But over the last 10 years, we've come full circle that people actually have discussions, adult discussions about cannabis. It's not so stigmatized now. And I think that's a huge step forward.
Yeah, I think it goes back to my comment of it's like nickel. It is the Nickelback of political issues, right? I mean,
yeah.
We're mainstream, and I think people need to recognize that in our community, that as mainstream as we are, it creates a lot more issues for us. This is a good step, as you said, in removing in a progressive direction, I would hope. It's not what people wanted, but I think we knew that coming into even before he got elected wasn't going to be what people wanted.
Well,
but I think people really set themselves up. They really were like, "Oh, I'm so high, marijuana legal. Look how cute Justin Trudeau is. It's gonna be okay."
Yeah, no, and I don't think that's the way a lot of us are looking at it. I think a lot of us are also actually looking at the fact that this is a first step. It's going to take the stigmatization away from, say, said housewife that might want to use this as, medicine too, because even with the medicinal side of it, still the stigma is still there. So I think, like you said, the mainstream, the normalization is coming. And I think that's what the main goal should be, was overall too, was to make it so that, the word, as Bill Blair used, pothead, wasn't a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like, it not be upset that somebody's calling you a pothead. You can just go, thanks very much, I enjoy it. You know what I mean? Rather than, but I don't like the drunk aspect used either, because just because you have a couple drinks doesn't make you a drunk. And just because you smoke a couple joints doesn't make you a pothead. So I think, in hindsight, the stigmatization that comes along with substances of any kind is always going to be there. But then in recreational, like I said, social drinking is not being a drunk. Social smoking is not being a pothead. Or, you know what I mean? And being medicinal doesn't make you a pothead either. So I think that being said, some of the stigmatization might come off of cannabis users. And I'd like to see that be, something that really happens so that we don't have to hang our heads and hide in closets anymore. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Thanks for having me on your show. It's been a great joy to come out and do some media.
Yeah, well, we're going to wrap this up, and thank you for coming on the show. And we are done for the day. We'll be back next week. I'm going to have Nathalie Bouchard on my show. She's somebody that most of you probably don't know or have ever heard of, but she's actually a victim of the drug war. She just finished doing an 18-month house arrest for cannabis possession. So I will have her on next Wednesday, and I'd like to again thank my sponsors, who are 12 High Chicks Magazine, Remos Nutrients, Canadian Therapeutic Cannabis Partners Society, Mum Maritimers United for Medical Marijuana, and the Haley Rose Foundation. You all have a terrific 420 tomorrow. I will be coming on live at some point with the Lifestyle Radio Network from here, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow then. You have a great day, and thanks again, Matt.
Thanks, Tamara.
You take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have had it.
You might have